I knew that the Justice Department and the FBI were conducting intensive investigations, as I had insisted that they should. The White House counsel, John Dean, was assigned to monitor these investigations, and particularly to check into any possible White House involvement. Throughout the summer of 1972, I continued to press the question, and I continued to get the same answer. I was told again and again that there was no indication that any persons were involved other than the 7 who were known to have planned and carried out the operation and who were subsequently indicted and convicted.
I realized that the cover-up was already in effect in being, and I realized that when Mr. Strawn told me of the documents that he had destroyed at Mr. Haldeman's instruction, that there certainly wasn't going to be a revelation of the White House involvement in the matter.
Gordon Strawn, right-hand man to Haldeman. Strawn was the White House link with the Nixon re-election committee, and Strawn got the word from Haldeman, the man closest to Nixon.
He told me, well, make sure our files are clean.
What did that mean to you?
Well, I went down and shredded that document and others related.
Now, did you do that on your own initiative as such, or did you feel that you were making sure that you were following Mr. Haldeman's instruction that you should make sure the files were clean?
No, I believed I was following his orders.
John Dean testified that his orders came from Ehrlichman.
I remember well his instructions. He told me to shred the documents and deep six the briefcase. I asked him what he meant by deep six. He leaned back in his chair and said, "You drive across the river on your way home at night, don't you?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, when you cross over the bridge on your way home, just toss the briefcase into the river." I felt very much on the spot, so I told him in a joking manner that I would bring the materials over to him and he could take care of them because he also crossed the river on his way home at night.
I have no recollection of that kind of a conversation. Now, there was in this story also the suggestion of shredding. I don't think in my life that I have suggested to anybody that a document be shredded.
I have no recollection of giving Mr. Strawn instructions to destroy any materials, nor do I recall a later report from Strawn that he had done so, or that the files were clean.
Why didn't you, as counsel to the president, go to him at that time and tell him what was happening?
Senator, I didn't have access to the president. I never was presumptuous enough to try to pound on the door and get in because I knew that just didn't work that way.
You mean you were counsel to the President of the United States, wanted to? Is that your testimony?
Well, sir, I thought it would be presumptuous of me to try because I felt I was told my reporting channel was through Mr. Haldeman and Mr. Ehrlichman, and I was reporting everything I knew to them.
Dean kept Ehrlichman and me posted from time to time on developments, and through us, the president.
Did you at any time tell the president anything you knew about the White House horrors?
No, sir, I did not.
Could you tell us, sir, why you did not ask Mr. Mitchell what he knew?
For the very simple reason that when I talked to Mr. Mitchell, and I saw him often in that period, that I had every reason to believe that if he were involved, if he had any information to convey, he would tell me.
If he had asked you what your knowledge was, especially before the election, would you have told the president?
I would have laid out the chapter and verse on everything that I knew about it.
Because of these continuing reassurances, because I believed the reports I was getting, because I had faith in the persons from whom I was getting them, I discounted the stories in the press that appeared to implicate members of my administration or other officials of the campaign committee.
There was plenty of commotion in the press, led by Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, who were regularly breaking new information about Watergate in the Washington Post. But somehow, close as they were and threatened as they were by the disclosures, Mr. Nixon and Mr. Mitchell never got around to discussing them. For his part, Dean claimed to have told everything about the White House cover-up to Ehrlichman and Haldeman. Meanwhile, the president denied that anyone told him anything. And all three, Nixon, Haldeman, and Ehrlichman, accused Dean of lying. But eminent witnesses testified that Haldeman, Ehrlichman, and Dean all had put pressure on them to aid in the cover-up. They were L. Patrick Gray, acting head of the FBI, Richard Helms, director of the Central Intelligence Agency, and the number 2 man at the CIA, Vernon Walters.
In these conversations, did you discuss the possibility of CIA involvement in the break-in?
I assured Mr. Gray that the CIA had no involvement in the break-in, no involvement whatever. And it was my preoccupation consistently from then to this time to make this point and to be sure that everybody understands it. It doesn't seem to get across very well for some reason, but the agency had nothing to do with the Watergate break-in.
I simply said, Mr. Dean, any attempt to involve the agency in the stifling of this affair would be a disaster.
General Walters understood the danger to the president of trying to use the CIA to block an FBI investigation. Gray saw it too, and he warned the president in a phone call.
Mr. President, there is something I want to speak to you about. Dick Walters and I feel that people on your staff are trying to mortally wound you by using the CIA and FBI. There was a slight pause, and the president said, Pat, you just continue to conduct your aggressive and thorough investigation.
The attempt to involve the FBI and the Central Intelligence Agency in the cover-up turned out to be the time bomb in the whole Watergate affair. It was the facts that were so explosive. The CIA was asked to block the FBI investigation and to help pay off the burglars. While the CIA at first did cooperate in thwarting the FBI investigation, it refused to make payoffs. But just asking the FBI and the CIA to get involved was a crime. It's called obstruction of justice. The question that was pursued to the end of the whole Watergate affair was, who ordered the attempt to involve the CIA in the cover-up? When the CIA refused to help, Dean was ordered to find another way to pay the burglars.
There was a discussion of the need for support money in exchange for the silence for the men in jail, and if the CIA could not do it, they would have to find the money somewhere else. Mitchell asked me to get the approval of Haldeman and Ehrlichman to use Mr. Herbert Kalmbach to raise the necessary money.
Herbert Kalmbach was the president's personal lawyer. He handled the most sensitive matters for Mr. Nixon. In the cover-up, he was given a most sensitive job, meeting the burglars' demands for money.